Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Rapid Down right on Rapid Television. We do apologize that we're bringing the big conversation later than our scheduled time. And I think it's because yesterday was International Day for the women, right? I know one thing about women. If you plan on going out with women, you will always go late.
I take an exception to that. I take a very serious exception to that.
Martha,
you would not slander my gender right here on national TV.
Good. I like the way you're sarcastically defending your gender.
No, that's not, it's not sarcasm.
But, I mean, the truth is, Martha, in various occasions, right, you plan on going out, you know, for an event, a party with a friend of yours that is a lady. Many times than none. The lady will always find a way to delay you.
It is not a lady's thing.
It is
you
more
say
of
it
a
all the
lady's
time.
thing.
He's the first person to correct you when you make very generic statements like, oh, from this place, they're like this. Or maybe let's say it's the houses are like this.
Right.
By the way, I'm one of the stripes, so don't worry. It's not a shade. The houses are like this. The Igbos are like this. He's the one to say it's not about their tribe. It's about their personality. And now you come on national TV to say women in general.
All right, I take it back.
I take it back.
Good. I take it back.
Good. We don't. We're here. We do what we need to do. We show up when we need to show up. The fact that we have a few bad eggs does not in any way mean that every single woman has little to no value for time.
All right. That being said, now I say to you again, Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you. You should have started with that. You should have started with that. I would have wanted to hear every other thing you had to say.
Well,
but yeah, thank you.
We're battered. But of course, good to have you join us on this very special edition as we celebrate the International Women's Day today. And it's really important that it was celebrated yesterday, correct? The International Women's Day. And it's just important that we get to remind you that women are really very important.
It's for the entire month, by the way.
For that, we won't get the last of this. Well, women are very important. Yeah, they are the backbone of the society. And of course, they make our society and the entire world, they make it really, really beautiful. I make both to say that without women in our world, the world might not just be as beautiful as we experience it today.
Yes, I agree.
Women bring a spice to the world. And so today we join the world to celebrate the International Women's Day. And this year's theme is Give to Gain.
Absolutely.
And that theme is it's a very beautiful theme, right? Give to gain. And women are, one gender that knows how to give. I can say that because I've been, I have two amazing women, more actually in my life, but for the purpose of this, for the context, the context is not a very big word now. I'm putting it in context, you know. For context sake, I have two amazing women in my life who, since the very first day I
hope they don't play the same role.
No, they play different roles. No, they play different roles.
Very good, because it would be good for you to specify that.
Yeah, they play different roles. You know, mom and sister, right now. You know, and these two individuals are the strongest and the best blessing that God has given me. In fact, I say many times that one of the proof or sign that I know that God loves me is by giving me these two amazing people in my life. So you get that, Jack, you know? So again, come on now, come on.
But anyways,
come on.
The team this time around, I know that women give, women nurture and all of that. So the men anyways, but it's the women we're talking about today. They give, they nurture and all of that stuff. But this year's theme of Give to Gain is just basically giving to the woman. So this time around, it's not the woman giving to you guys. It's you investing in the woman. It's talking about opportunities. It's talking about equal opportunities. It's talking about funding, mentorship, resources, give to gain. And you know, there's this computer language that we're very familiar with. It's giggle, it's garbage in, garbage out. And this is most times what the woman has been likened to. What you pour into her is most likely the quality of what you receive. And the good thing about the woman is what you pour into her, she multiplies and gives it back. So do the mathematics by yourself. What you give in is exactly what you get out. But yes, this is just basically focusing on the power of investing in women. I know we use this line very well in a lot of debates in primary and secondary school. If you train a man, you train an individual. If you train a woman, you train a society. That's a very, very common line you'd hear most of the time when we talk about women. That's not because we want to overemphasize the role of the woman, but because there are intrinsic qualities that a woman possesses, which is nurturing, multiplication, as in childbirth, which also translates in their daily lives and their ability to handle the things that they're being given individually, right? So it's giving to gaining. If we look now as a nation at investing more in women, investing more in mentorship opportunities, investing more in political positions, investing more in scientific opportunities for women, giving them a level playing ground where each can vie for positions as much as a man would without restrictions of gender, we would see a better society, because when we give them, they multiply, make it better, and put it back in the society. And this is definitely the kind of society that we want to have come 2026 and far beyond. So Gift Again is 2026 themes for the International Women's Day.
All right, now we have a video where the most amazing women from the Rapid Broadcasting Network had to talk about the International Women's Day. Let's go ahead and watch and get to hear some of the things that they had to say.
Being a woman means carrying strength in quiet places, nurturing dreams, teams, and rising again and again and again, regardless of the odds.
Being a woman means embodying both strength and grace. It's the power to build, to nurture, to lead.
Being a woman means changing the narrative, and we do this by actively challenging stereotypes that limit us.
Being a woman is fighting against all odds to succeed. Being a woman is being termed aggressive when you're being assertive. Being a woman is being termed emotional when you are trying to make a decision that is good for everybody. But all in all, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love being a woman.
It's not really easy being a woman. I believe being a woman means lifting other women up.
Happy International Women's Day.
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 Yes, from the beautiful women at a Rapid Broadcasting Network, saying to every woman out there, happy International Women's Day. And again, we join the world to celebrate all the amazing women for the beautiful things that they do to making sure that our world is made better. I recall that today in history, we celebrated the birthday of one of those women who has actually etched her name as well in the sands of time, the former Minister of Finance here in Nigeria, Adeosun, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, rather, who served as minister during the Buhari's administration, and some of the things as well that she did within that moment. There's also, I mean, there are beautiful names that we can get to call and mention in on this table, women who has done so much, women who has actually, put a narrative, women who has become mentors to younger people, and other young women could say, yeah, we want to be like this woman, the likes of Folorinke, Alakeja, the likes of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the likes of Martha Alo, just to blush you on there. But yeah, those beautiful women and all of that. And I think, again, just like you talked about the theme, investing in women, it's a very important thing that we need to do. And it begins from the family, right? Parents, brothers have got to pay attention to these women and as much as possible invest in them for the quality of life that we expect them to live, right?
And the general theme is basically rights, justice, and action. But I mean, brought out of a core theme, give to gain. And there are key aspects to the theme that the United Nations was able to highlight. First, they said give to gain, which we first talked about, and then they talked about reciprocity, which is basically encouraging a mindset of sharing knowledge and for support and to foster collaboration between the men and the women. Also, it talks about action oriented, which is a call to action for individuals and institutions to actively remove barriers to equality. You see, in certain organizations, women are not allowed to occupy certain positions, right? And sometimes it's unconscious. It's an unconscious mental conditioning that we have in this part of the world, where we now decide to choose for the woman what roles she can occupy and those which she would not be able to occupy, forgetting that they are also individuals on their own. They are also entities on their own that are able to make decisions by themselves. So the most important part of these celebrating the International Women's Day every year. It's just seeing where we were the last time and where we now are. We are still moving for reserved seats for women's bill. We're still talking about being able to identify women across board, women that are doing remarkable things as well. But the most important thing is equity, where the woman in A and the woman in B, or the woman in A and the man in B, are able to vie for positions equally. We're not talking about equality most of the time. We're talking about equity, where everyone is treated as should be treated. Decisions should not be made for us because we are women.
Right.
We should be allowed to make decisions by ourselves and on our own. And of course, we will make the decision from informed point of view. That's now our primary responsibility, because of course the government cannot make the decisions for us. Our husbands might not be able to make the decisions for us. No. What we call it, employers may not be able to make the decisions for us. We will make the decisions from an informed standpoint. But because of our agendas, we should not be limited from carrying out certain responsibilities. So sad that certain organizations previously, we saw the disparity in pay and remuneration, because this is a woman and this is a man. We assume that the man naturally has more responsibilities, much more than the woman. And for whatever reason that they present as why they do that, especially when it comes to remuneration as well. But you see, we're breaking the barriers. If we look at the 20th century, where women were not even allowed to vote, which brought about the women's suffrage, suffrage movement. Women were not allowed to vote. We had come a long way. We had so many restrictions. And I know that in the 20s and 1920s, where we were at the time is not where we are right now. Women occupy very important positions. However, there's more that can be done. We can be considered more. We can be given more opportunities. And like the theme for this year says, give to gain. There's more that can still be given to the woman so that she can pour back into the society.
Very true. And of course, just like you've also stated, there's been great opportunities right now. Women are also taking up those particular opportunities.
Absolutely.
You know, prior to this time, it was a very big struggle to, here in Africa even, for women to be allowed to go to school and to get to study. But thank God, we've moved past that particular era. Now, women get to have quality education, and most times, you know, once they are done with their schooling, they are able to do quite a number of massive things to actually make the society better. Just like you said earlier in the opening, you know, if you train a woman, you train a society. And we've seen some of these things play out, you know, most times in homes and various families. Now we've seen that women, you know, out of their education and exposure, have now become the ones who became the pillars of their families, you know. And sometimes there's that stereotypical kind of ideology that we have in this part of the world when it comes to family responsibilities, that the man has got to be the one to provide all of that. But right now the narrative is changing, right? Now there are opportunities where the man can get to work, the woman as well can get to work. And women now are leading industries. Women have good companies, organizations, and these are conglomerates that are world class as it is. There was a time I was having a conversation many years ago with a friend of mine, and we said, look at many of the SMEs that we have in this part of the world. Get down to some of those places, you will see that many women own many SMEs, more than men. Sometimes the men were looking out for, you know, the white collar jobs as it is, right? But women, as at the time, have little businesses here and there that have opened up to ensure that, hey, come rain, come sun, we have a means of income coming in for us every particular day. That's why we have the salon, you have the supermarket.
The funny thing is that men also have taken roles in this position.
Very true, you know. But I'm just saying, prior to now, many SMEs then, you know, were more occupied by the women. In fact, you just see, I want to start up a salon, you know, I want to have a supermarket, I want to have a space in the market, I want to sell this and
so
that. That's the start.
You know, exactly. You know why I usually would have a problem with this is because we have been stereotyped to think that these are the places that we fit in the most, and it's absolutely false. We don't fit in just in the marketplace. We don't fit in just in salons. We don't fit in just in the tailoring or designer shop. We handle businesses on an international level. You made mention of we have Adaora Onyechere, and you would agree that from the time when she became the NAFDAC DG of NAFDAC, I don't think there's anybody that has been able to put NAFDAC on the spotlight as much as she did, because she took the bull by the horn regardless of the consequences. We have the likes of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, one person who stood unopposed in a position. That's a global position where men and women would veer to occupy. She stood unopposed. She was there before, got into the office, time for voting. Nobody contested her competence level there. So women should not be relegated to places like that, or the salon, or we can do the designer shop, we can be hairstylists. Yes, we can be hairstylists. Yes, we can be fashion designers, but we also can handle multi-billion-dollar companies and do it exceptionally well as well.
Now, I don't recall that I made that reference.
I'm just reiterating what you're saying, because
I was just trying to create a balance, saying that in as much as women actually go for those conglomerates, if you also look down on the SMEs, they are also all scattered all around that. So in other words, they are not. I mean, your gender.
They're not limited.
They're limited to anything. Actually, so they start from some. Look at the I'm trying to remember her name now. As she was. I mean, I've been watching her videos almost throughout last week. The furniture woman who later went into oil and gas. Ibikun Awosika. She started up as a furniture person, right? Chairs and all of that. And that business went to the international space as it is, right? An idea, a vision. And she was one person that started as an SME, and then her business also grew to that particular level where it became a world-class business. And we've seen many women do this over time, in our society, in our country, and of course in the world generally. And again, I think it's just a very good time that we get to remember that we need to constantly and continually invest in women. And just like you said right now, for every woman out there, do not limit your vision, right? As much as possible, dream big. Just have that dream in your heart, and of course begin to take those actions to ensuring that you achieve those dreams that you have in your heart.
Just reiterating what you said about starting very small and then expanding. We'll talk about Mary from the Mami Market. That's a story that we can't hear on Rapid TV.
Right.
Where that was just a little business she started off with, normal Growell that she used to make drinks and what have you. She started there, and in every single barracks in Nigeria today we have the Mami Market. In fact, until I was exposed to the truth of that story, I never understood what huge sacrifice a person would make and what determination a person has to set up something like that. So she was driven from there to another place, started off the Mami Market, and it continued. It's about building impact that outlives you. Till date, I don't think the Mami Market is something that is ever going to be abolished. No. Because think about it, while we were in camp, the Mami Market was a place that brought everybody together. It was a meeting point. It was where everyone would be able to relate with literally everything, at the time. So women occupy these positions. And the truth is, when we have conversations about women, men should also not be alienated from this conversation as well, because they also sit at tables where decisions about women will be made. So when we move for the rights of women, when we push for the rights of women, we are not completely kicking men off the table. We are just saying, hear the women out a lot more. Men also sit on that table. So they definitely are very integral part of the conversations when we talk about women. For instance, you sit on a board where they say a woman cannot carry out that responsibility. You as a man who have had first-hand experience of women carrying out responsibility can't speak up. One vote for that also helps in pushing the narrative a bit forward. So when we say, if women are the only ones talking about how great women are, it might not be able to drive the point as much as when a man or people of the opposite now pushes that point. It's not because we do not believe in ourselves. It's because in the matter of many witnesses, a matter is established, right? So it has to come from various points. And look at a literary work before it is considered, an outstanding or a stellar work. You can criticize that work by what you say about it, what society say about it, what others think about it. It's the same thing about policies for women. It's not just about women alone. What women think about it is important. What the society sees the women as, it's important. What you men also see women as is very important in the part of the conversation. So yes, this is a call to also include men in conversations when it comes to women as well. And on this International Women's Day, it's important that we refrain from pushing the narrative of, listen, oh, men are not important, women are the most important. That's not what the day it's about. It's about men are important, but women are also as important as men. This is the bane of the conversation. And this, of course, officially began in about 1975. It got a global recognition by the United Nations. And United Nations officially started to observe this International Women's Day. And it was launched decades ago for women. And this basically shifted women's rights into global policy discussions. In the UN, we have conversations about women. In ECOWAS, we have conversations about women. In every single strata, we have conversations about women. It was only possible by making this an official conversation and giving it global recognition in 1975 by the United Nations. So yes, kudos to the United Nations as well, because that's the reason we can talk a whole day about women.
Well, of course, we have quite a number of talks regarding today, but right now we need to go on a break, and we'll come back. We continue even go even deeper in the conversation. Do stay. Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. This is the big conversation, and today we are commemorating the International Women's Day. And now to join us on the conversation is Adaora Onyechere Sydney-Jack, who is a broadcast journalist and advocate behind Gender Agenda on African Independent Television. Hello, good morning to you, Adaora, and thanks for joining us on the conversation this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's so good to have you join us here. We've been expecting to have you join us.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right.
All right, let's begin with the conversation. Once again, good morning to you, Adaora, and thanks for being here with us. And again, happy International Women's Day to you.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm very late. I apologize.
All right. So when we talk about International Women's Day, what does that mean for you?
I think it means a lot of things in perspective. I mean, to me, it means human rights for all citizens, whether, women or men, but most importantly for the marginalized and vulnerable group. And so I'm not just talking about women, I'm talking about women with disabilities as well. I'm talking about young girls. I'm also looking at, the economics of the commemoration. I mean, when you're talking about the campaign theme, Give to Gain, what are you also looking at in terms of measurable metrics, of how women are able to get, give backs or, find empowerment or find, themselves mainstreamed in the system, in the ecosystem of governance in Nigeria, so to speak, for me, because for me, I think backbone is what's most critical. Number 3 is how are women also faring as burden bearers of insecurity? How have they been able to be, integrated into peace, mediation, and reconciliation with all of the conversations happening at the community level in terms of building intelligence to reduce the level of, homegrown insecurity, farmers' headers crisis. I'm also looking at what are the metrics that we're using to look at the number of girls, out of school. What are they learning? How are we looking at foundational learning, the level of numeracy and literacy, level for women and girls? I'm also looking at, sexual and gender-based, violence. How many of these have we been able to curb? What is the accessibility for justice for women and girls at this level? So when I'm thinking, International Women's Day, beyond just the celebration today, these conversations have been ongoing. And I think today, for me, is a day to bring it to the fore as much as we've done that, subsequently on other days. But looking at it today, mainstreaming it in our conversation, having the media center around it is something I think that is critical. But, in terms of really looking at what this ideally means to me, first as a Nigerian woman, is that I'm thinking about where are women in the conversation of human rights, in the central conversation in Nigeria when we're thinking women's political participation, representation at the National Assembly and in governance.
Okay,
all right.
Thank you. So let's also look at it from the political point of view. Women still remain underrepresented politically, and women hold about 26% of parliamentary seats globally, and only 10% of countries are led by women. We also have female global leaders, of course, and of course we have made progress. We cannot deny the fact that we have moved from a point where it wasn't a scene where women could be seen at all to where we now have little to no representation. parity is still an issue. And I do understand that you contested to represent your Imo State House of Assembly, yes, your constituency in 2019. I understand that you were part of that under the AA political party. So would like to hear from your lived experience. What were the things that you experienced while you were contesting to represent your constituency, especially when it comes to gender and the disparity between male and female here in Nigeria and its political scene?
For me, I think that the political ecosystem is, I mean, from 1999 till about now, we could have said to have had some measurable inroads from the presidency under Olusegun Obasanjo to that of, His Excellency Goodluck Jonathan. Okay. We've seen a bit of a retrogression in some administrations. I think that it started to fall into decimals under the administration of the late, former head of state, Muhammadu Buhari. And now that we're in the renewed hope agenda administration, that is His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we've seen a bit of inroad. However, we're not there yet. And I think from my journey, what I can say is that before we actually look at advancing national inclusion, we must look at domesticating inclusion at the community level, because that is where the beneficiaries of development are. That is where the first role modeling of women in politics and governance starts, from that level, to be able to exemplify it for the young average girl. When I ran elections, and I would say to you that even up till now, when I ran elections, it was, you would say it was very patriarchal, and there was a lot of, gatekeeping of masculinity in the ecosystem of the politics. But now I think that it's even gotten worse, because what you see is just about 4 women, about 6% in total of women's representation in the entirety of the Nigerian populace. You have at least 14 states without women at the state assembly representing women. So who are those voices, presenting the issues of policy integration, policy development for women and youths and young people at the state assembly? So it starts from the communities for me. It starts from the local level. And I would say this, when I ran election, having it so, it was, a fortunate adventure. What I call an adventure, it was the fact that there were so many, deficiencies in terms of participatory politics, where you have, the bigger parties unwilling to take women. You also have the reason for that being the issue of the highest bidder. You also have the issue of, the gatekeeping of masculinity in the structure, the methodology of inclusion for women, all of that. And again, the limited amplification for women in the media at the local level, because a lot of the media stations are privately owned, and you cannot tell them how to be able to recreate their methodology of engagement, even though with time it has continued and consistently started to open up. And so for me, it was not just the financing of the politics, it was the gatekeeping of the financing of the masculine space within the politics. Secondly, you also had the stereotypical nature of politics at the local level, where it was a wearing on, conversation for especially the men, the traditional men in the system, in the community, to want a woman to lead, to want a woman to be on the ballot. And so even though there were women willing to vote, they were highly gatekept by the traditional system of the men within the family spaces and within the ecosystem of the social, engagement spaces like the Umuadas, so many conscriptions from culture. And one other thing was to also look at the issue of money politics, highest bidder takes it all. And that again brings me back to the issue of, can we start to look at popularizing candidates who can bring the map at that level, and also looking at building consensus in terms of financing of politics on the measurable ability of saying, for these particular elections, we need to look at this income of a certain candidate and measure it with what is available to run. I understand that women are given nomination forms as tokens. A lot of people think it's tokenism, because by the time you reduce the nomination forms for women and they don't emerge at primaries, it's almost, it's null and void. The ability to gain entry with the nomination form is just one politics into the room. The major politics in the ecosystem of election candidacy is to be able to emerge at the ballot box. Okay. And that is where women find a lot of problems, where the fact that they get these forms, but they do not emerge at the primaries because, again, there is a bidding process within the entire political party mechanism that excludes the women from emerging at the ballot boxes.
All right. Away from politics,
there's a lot we need to do.
Yeah,
still.
quite a lot actually. Now, away from politics as well, let's talk about some solutions anyway when it comes to ensuring that women are given the right to participate in these institutions. How can men, various institutions, and of course society at large actively support women's growth and leadership?
I think collaboration. Collaborative energy. And when I mean collaboration, I'm not just thinking in currency or money. I'm also thinking in building structure. And in building structure, we need to be able to look at, a collaborative synergy between the men as allies and men within the system. I will tell you that oftentimes when you look at women who get into the system, whether it is in the political system or in the social construct, we need to understand that because of years of patriarchy, we need to start to deorientate, demystify, and unlearn by getting the men involved. And through getting the men involved, we can get them involved by, one, having conversations around why it is important for women to be on the table, not just because they are women, but with capacity. Why, when we look at the currency of those who are burden bearers and participants in democracy, women also make up half the population, and why voices united are stronger for development.
Okay. All right. Because we're running out of time, let's just touch on the healthcare sector. There's still a lot of gap when it comes to healthcare. In fact, before we got you on the line, we were having conversations centered around some of the issues that women face, maternal mortality rates. In fact, over the weekend, we saw that this drug, it's called Postinor, it was named as one of the leading causes of cancer for women. And women who have fibroids are prescribed drugs like this. So there's still a lot that can be done, especially in the healthcare sector when it comes to women. How do you think that we can bridge this gap?
I think women should begin to own health literacy closer. Women should be able to have understanding of what the healthcare, especially public healthcare system, offers them in terms of immediate short-term intervention and long-term. Now, the lack of health literacy gives ignorance and excuse, especially at the local level. Maternal mortality is said to be at its highest in Nigeria, with the WHO, stating this last month. And they're saying that one of the largest causes of maternal mortality in Nigeria is not just the failure of public health system, but also the increase in, unsafe abortions. And when you're thinking unsafe abortions, you're also talking about issues surrounding the kind of medications that have or gain access into families or to young women, especially like the medication you just mentioned, which is Postinor. So again, one of the critical angle and suggestions that have been method to be able to reduce this is being said to be health literacy. What do Nigerian women know about, health? What kind of sectors or what kind of systems can they be able to engage in order to be able to ascertain the kind of health intervention that they can get at the public health system and at the private care level. Secondly, we need to look at the health policy reforms. The health policy reforms are only looking at private sector institutionalized through, reform into perhaps increasing or creating more avenue for drug access. But we need to also go into research. What are we researching when we're thinking medication for women? And how can we also look at generics in terms of age grading and also look at body sequencing? So these are some of the things we need to look at. And again, there seems to also be lack of local education on what kind of interventions are supposed to be given to certain age groups and the kind of health balance this would give to women. So I believe that health literacy would help. I also believe that policy health reforms are needed. Absolutely. And I also believe that hospitals have a duty of information for what they give to citizens, especially women between their ages, those who go for antenatal and those who are in postnatal care.
All right, just very quickly now, what are your hopes for women in Nigeria in the next 5 to 10 years, particularly women in governance when we talk about national development?
I am hopeful, not even in the next 5 years, that in the next couple of weeks, right, when the National Assembly resumes, that they would make it a priority to look at the reserved seats for women's bill and pass the bill. We need the bill to be passed, not just because it is, commiserate with the numbers of women who are excluded, but because we have the same currency of capacity of women needed in developing policies for women. She just mentioned health. How can we develop inroads for women in health if we don't have women in the policy reform for health on the table at the National Assembly? So we need the reserved seats for women's bill to be passed so that we can have more women at the State Assembly to represent in those states without women, so that we can have more women look at laws that are obsolete, that do not work for women in terms of long-term value for development in Nigeria. And I believe with representation based on women's inroad in the parliament, we will see a holistic approach to governance in the next 5 years.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Adaora Onyechere Sydney-Jack, for your time with us today. We do appreciate you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Great job.
Thank you very much.
Of course, well, let's get to you conclude on
well,
this.
I like the fact that she made mention of the fact that we're not waiting for the next couple of years.
Right.
We're waiting for the next couple of weeks when the National Assembly resumes and the conversations start to take center stage. If you do not know, most times the people who make the best policies are people who have lived experience of the framework that they're trying to build. So you cannot have conversations about women's health when women do not sit on the table.
That's right.
You cannot have conversations about women, about pertinent issues that affects the women, and women are not on that table. Men cannot decide what is befitting for women, and women don't get to decide what is befitting for men. And that's the that's the basics of this conversation we're having. If women are the people being spoken about, then they should also have a place at the table, And you see, when it comes to women's rights in Nigeria, when we talk about that, sometimes people now start to view us as very emotional beings. These are not in any way emotional conversations. In fact, we have been able to sample here women we had a conversation with a woman who had gestational diabetes.
Yeah.
We had a conversation with a woman here we talked about a woman who had cerebral palsy after childbirth.
Yeah.
These are real life issues that women deal with. Another woman who is not going through that is not even allowed to trivialize it, let alone a man who does not live that experience. So we need to start having representation of women. She made a mention of something at the end, which I was even trying to build on a bit. If you're saying that this constituency, a man is coming from this constituency, I don't mind a nation where we have both male and female from this constituency to represent us at the table, because now we can draw live lessons we can draw live policies, or we can build policies and framework based on the realities of the men and then the women from our constituency. That's how to make a nation great. Start from the grassroots, take it up to the National Assembly, and it becomes a law. And when it becomes a law, the rights of each person is protected, male or female. But this conversation does not end here. It definitely is a lifelong one until we achieve the mark that we are set to.
All right, of course, that being said, this is where we'll draw the curtain on the conversation this morning. Do remember that you can follow us across all our social media pages, across our platforms at Rapid TV. And you can get to watch our episodes on our YouTube platform, which is at Official Rapid TV. And not to worry, wherever you are in the world, you can always watch us live using our website, www.arabianradiotv.com. My name is Victor. Okay.
And my name is Martha Alu. We'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow.